Yeah, so basically I wanted to talk about, I'll say so who I am. This is who I am. There's my socials. Yeah, so I was going to talk about surfacing local insights. So this is really, I'm going to focus in on kind of one project that kind of comes out of Census. So I joined the ONS 5 years ago now, right at the start of kind of planning for how we would disseminate Census. And it's a kind of once in a decade thing. We now confirmed we're going to have another one of these in a few years. And it's a massive kind of opportunity to kind of understand data. And for me, you know, in the digital publishing department in ONS, data visualization, to communicate large volumes of data. And obviously, you know, the data itself might look something like this. Vast majority of people would not know where to throw that. And the geographies look something like this. Again, vast majority of people who've responded to Census wouldn't know much what to do with that. And obviously when we put out the Census and got a 97% response rate, we said it's about us. So we kind of made a promise to people that, you know, we're going to get this data back to you and you're going to understand it. But who is us? So we have a way of thinking about user personas. These are the ones we were defining at the time in the ONS. So there's, you know, from on the left, you've got these sort of technical users, all the way through to sort of, you know, inquiring citizens at the other end. Some of them do just want those big spreadsheets. Other ones, they really just want to understand it. They want you to tell what's the insight, how does it relate to me, what does this say about my area? And yeah, what do those people need? So we kind of mapped out lots of different kind of products, but I'm going to narrow in on this one, which relates to more about that kind of, you know, the help me understand kind of products. And here, this is where we zoom in on Scrollytelling and robo-journalism. And I will explain kind of how these come together. So I was going to look at this project, which was actually actually before Census, we did this project, which was about exploring local income disparity. So we can say an experiment in Scrollytelling and semi-automated journalism, or AK, lots of numbers explained. So we were looking at local income disparity as measured by income deprivation in the IMD, the indices of multiple deprivation. So this is like very small neighborhood LSOA level statistics. And we were trying to build up this story about, okay, what's kind of going on at a local level in terms of income disparity. And the idea was to kind of use this kind of multi-layered narrative. And we looked at, you know, we're not just looking at those individual neighborhoods, but we're trying to understand kind of on the level of the local authority, like how deprived the local authority is, but then also trying to understand the kind of how the deprivation kind of falls within that local authority. So basically we use a number of devices here. One is this kind of mapping and looking at these deciles. And you can see something from that. You can like look at lots of different maps of places. You can see that one is more deprived, one is less deprived. But trying to build up this kind of narrative. So there was this one element about extremes. So this is about, you know, in the most deprived local authorities, notably there was this kind of huge gap between the most and least deprived kind of neighborhoods within those authorities, much less true in the least deprived authorities. But there were still wealthy areas. You know, you look at the Wirral, the most deprived, actually has, you know, very, very well-off neighborhoods within it. So we were trying to also look at this idea of clustering. So this idea of Moran's eye, which is a kind of fairly complex kind of statistical concept, which the kind of average inquiring citizen maybe wouldn't really be able to process necessarily. But we wanted to bring this into this kind of overall narrative to kind of really help people to understand kind of both the ideas of this kind of how income deprived a place is has this correlation, but there are interesting outliers as well. And yeah, we kind of pulled this together. So when I talked about Scrollytelling, it was really this idea about how do you weave this narrative together. And I can give a kind of little snapshot of that, hopefully, of this what's it called is working, the sorry, the GIF on the animation on the next slide. But just this idea, so the narrative device that we try to use to pull this whole story together was this idea of starting local. So right up front, you're selecting your own local authority, and that's being used as a kind of lens to kind of, you're zooming in, you're understanding like what it is about this income disparity between, sorry, the income profile within an area, but then saying like, this is, these neighbourhoods, there are 32,000 of them in the country. And here you can start to see that more areas that kind of have a similar profile to your area. And it kind of, the narrative unfolded through each of these kind of topics that I've raised, Moran's eye and things like that, these kind of quite woolly technical ideas. But we found actually that, this kind of thing, I wouldn't say went viral, but when we released it, it kind of really moved around in the kind of online circles, kind of really people were talking about Moran's eye. And I think what we discovered was really that by designing for these people, the kind of, I want to, just tell me what the data says, it helps you to reach this other group of people, the kind of more, the policymakers, the experts as well, by creating that kind of buzz around it. And the result of this was Moran's eye turns up, based on exactly this kind of analysis that the team had done in the Levelling Up report, which was the white paper, gosh, I don't know what year this was now, probably 2021, 22. So it's kind of, I guess I kind of wanted to show that it's not just a kind of shiny way of presenting information, but hopefully that it's a really useful vehicle for kind of delivering those insights and getting them to the places that matter. So I think actually I can just about leave it there. I can say a little bit about, kind of some of the slides I skipped out, which are kind of, so off the back of this, really, we were able to do a lot of these things for Census. We've built up a lot of kind of technical kind of know-how to do these projects. We have like libraries you can find online through GitHub and things like that, that kind of have the components both for the kind of robo aspect, that this kind of thing that you're taking data for areas and generating text from that. So if you saw some of the early slides, you could see that there's a bit of narrative about Liverpool or whatever. So we've got these tools that we're able to kind of reuse those things. And then also in terms of the components, like to build these kind of Scrollytelling articles and things like that. So as a result, we've kind of repeated the process quite a number of times, and we have there's one tool to look out for is kind of house prices in your area. So that's based on that same robo journalism thing. Takes a spreadsheet of data, generates a report for every area in the country. I shall leave it there.